What's going on, guys? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I want to say hi to our UK and US clients first, and that includes the Canadians, right? North Americans and all. Guys, I hope you're having a beautiful end to your weekend, and I just want to say I appreciate the hell out of you guys. To our Aussies, happy Monday morning, and we're going to be getting started in this episode in 2 minutes. So let's get the countdown on. We are ready to start with some fire in this episode. I'm pumped. I'm super stoked to be here this morning. So yeah, some good things happening in BBA right now, aren't there? Between the cold showers, the check-in scenarios. I'm going to keep some stuff under wraps. We're going to do a new merch run pretty soon because lots of you guys have been asking about those good things. So yeah, we're coming in, guys. 2 minutes. We've got to start. Let us know if you're coming into the Jesus Christ, fumbling my words. Rock This One live, and this is going to be an episode that's going to go a little bit of a combination between some mindset stuff and some practical application. I'm really trying my best to make sure that these episodes are practical so that you can implement upon the back of them. How did you go, guys? What was the weekend like? Talk to me. We've got a few crew in here. Hello, Bobby. Lovely. How's the knee going, mate? Been a bit quiet in the group, but I see you've been doing your cold showers every morning, which is awesome. Kenny Beats, Hazel here too. Hello, guys. Good afternoon, evening. I hope you're good. How was your weekend, team? Tell me. Good morning, Burns. You're becoming super popular again. Say hi to that man of yours. Feels like he's a bit quiet at the moment, but I know you guys are busy on your feet. Hello there. Here she is, Cole. Nicky friend, mate. How are you, mate? Nick, I want to say tremendous work for you in your new squad. You were doing a fantastic job, my brother. So really well done. Guys, we're starting this episode in 40 seconds. Kenny, Hazel, yeah, you got it, mate. Hello, Xanthi, how are you, honey? Same thing for you, mate. The friend crew, Nikki and Xanth, actually crushing their squads. So good. Guys, we're starting this episode in 30 seconds. I think this is going to be a pretty value-packed episode. So I'm going to bring my crew in on TikTok. I'm super excited because I've got this double tripod scenario happening as of next week. So I've got 2 tripods. I'm going to do all the Facebook and all the kind of landscape ones, LinkedIn, YouTube, and then we're going to have both Instagram and TikTok as well. So we're streaming everywhere. Anyway, let's get stuck into this episode of the podcast, guys. Here we go. On the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast. This is the podcast that you come to when you are sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. We are across multiple platforms from LinkedIn to Facebook to YouTube, TikTok, and soon enough, Instagram Live as well. Now, in today's episode, we're going to be having a conversation around some practical strategies that you can apply when you're feeling super stuck, but you still need to lose weight, or you still need some physical results to happen, even though you feel really stuck. Okay, I'm going to be reading out a client message that I received, and the reason for the fact I'm doing this podcast episode is exactly that client message. Okay, but first I want to do a couple of shout outs to every one of you that are inside Better Body Academy and running through the March Cold Shower Challenge. We've still got a ton of people that are compliant and getting it done. So well done, guys. You know what? I got it this morning. Sunday morning seemed to be the hardest cold shower for me. I don't want to do it. But let's make a practice, or let's make it clear why we're doing this. When you do something that sucks in the morning, you set the tone that I'm the sort of person that does things that are hard at the start of the day, and that's why you start to win. Does that make sense? That's why we're doing it, guys. Secondly, I want to congratulate my main man, who should not be on this podcast, by the way. I don't think he is, and that is Mr. Kev Grant. Kev has lost 25 kilograms in Better Body Academy, and today did his first, well, I don't know if he's first, I should query that, but did a half marathon. Certainly it's the first one in a long time. He did it in a time. So for those of you that don't know, a half marathon is 21 kilometers and he did it in 2 hours and 12 minutes. Like, that is epic for a guy that was 25 kilos heavier just around 7 months ago. So incredible work, Kev. And it goes to this idea that you don't need to do cardio for fat loss, but once you've lost a bunch of fat, then you have the ability to do whatever you want. So congratulations, Kev. Guys, get in the comments and give Kev some love because I think that's a pretty big achievement. Okay, so the point of this podcast. Now, I don't want to just talk about this episode. I want to make a really important point to those of you that are watching. There's 25 odd people watching live. Guys, I think that podcasts and books, and I've done a podcast on this actually, they can be a form of procrastination. Okay, what do I mean by this? Well, I think that some people watch podcasts and think that by watching the podcast or reading the book, change is going to happen. The reality is, if you're listening to this podcast now, you've probably got one ear to me and then you're driving or you're in the gym or you're doing other things. So you're probably only going to pick up a segment of this podcast. So you've got to, look, there is no point in just listening to this as an exercise in, oh, I'm doing something. You've got to take out some 1 or 2 key points out of any book or podcast that you read and implement them. If you don't implement anything off the back of a podcast, it's kind of pointless. How often do we find ourselves in a TikTok or a YouTube hole and we're just there swallowing all this information, then we get out and someone could say to us, oh, what were you watching? You're like, oh, I don't know, just kind of into it. So we have to make sure that there's some practicality that comes out of this. And I'm going to give you 10 practical tips in this podcast episode. Okay, so I'm going to read out the message that I received over the weekend from a client. I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to read out the message to give you the context for this podcast. Here it is. I'm finding it difficult to keep on top of everything. Work, personal, mental health, family, etc. I'm managing to keep up 10,000 steps a day. Nutrition's inconsistent, but today was the first time I've stepped in the gym in 6 months. So that's good. Accountability-wise, well, I'm struggling with my why at the moment. I joined Better Body Academy because I want to gain confidence and hopefully find common ground and a community. When I share my posts, I get really positive comments, but I struggle to accept the positivity. I'm not sure this is something you could help out with, but to be honest, I feel really unworthy and undeserving. And I know that you're going to say, but I do deserve it, but I find that just so hard to accept. That's where I'm at. Ooh. Okay, so can you guys, there's 17 people watching here on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, etc. Another 7 on TikTok. Can you guys resonate with that? That people are bringing positivity to your life, but there's some part of you that resists it, that you feel that you're not deserved of it. Is this something that's common? Now, from running our mastermind program, our advanced program, I know that it is very common. Claire says, absolutely, yes, it is common. Yeah. So, the nature of what's going on here, we're not going to talk about that in a podcast because I think the origin of lack of self-love, lack of self-belief, deservedness, for the most part, it comes down a lot of the time to some trauma that is happening or that's happened way, way, way ago. And that trauma has led you to frame up the way you think through a certain set of lenses. And I don't think that, on a podcast, I can solve that because the reality is the trauma is so in there and stuck that oftentimes it needs a lot of talk therapy to get it out. It was once described to me as almost like having a balloon that you take down to the bottom of the pool, and that's your trauma. And naturally, because the balloon's full of air, it wants to come to the surface so it can escape, that negative energy can escape. But unfortunately, we just keep pushing it down below the level of the surface and it occupies under that level. That gives me a really good analogy of what it's like to be dealing with this trauma without necessarily understanding firsthand how it feels. And so what I want to do is in this episode, I want to talk, or rather give 10 tips that I think can help, which don't tell you how to deal with the trauma, because I'm not a psychologist. However, there are a lot of people that are in Better Body Academy that despite their traumas in the past are winning. And so I want to answer the client's question, and then I want to give, a broad range, and I'm going to stick around at the end of the podcast if anyone wants to talk more about this. So in no particular order, here come the 10 tips. Number 1, and even though they're not in any particular order, this one's probably the most important in my opinion. You gotta identify what your core values are. Do you guys remember the podcast that I did with Tony Burns, the Order of Australia award winner, a couple of weeks ago? One of the things that he said was, if you're struggling to find what your purpose is, and let's interchange like purpose with why, because the question from the client was, I'm struggling with my why. If you're struggling to find what your purpose is, then the first step is to start living with purpose. So rather than waiting for your purpose to come to you, which often takes years or decades because you're just not really sure what you're meant to do, instead, what I want you to do is start living with purpose. Finding your purpose is often really hard. It's a mission of exposing yourself to more and more things. But living with purpose, living with intention, that's a little bit easier if you do one thing. If you identify what your core values are. Think about what's important in your life, and that will give you a sense of motivation and purpose. So in the mastermind program that we run, on one of the weeks, we go through a core value filter where we ask ourselves, am I living according to my purpose or to my core values? But the problem that most of us face is we don't consciously know what our core values actually are to start with. So it's pretty hard to live in accordance to your core values if you don't know what they are. So for me, I can tell you unconditionally, my core values are, number 1, in no order, number 1, love. Like, this is such a big thing for me. Number 2, family. And number 3, health. And so it is easy for me to push away things if they don't fit one or all of those core values, because I know what my core values are. So for example, it's easy for me to go to the gym or set the habit of eating healthfully because I know what my core value is. If you don't know what you stand for, then how are you going to live to accordance for it? So take some mental notes here, guys. I will post these back into our client Facebook group. But the first one is you have to identify what your core values are. If you don't know what your core values are, you're rudderless. Okay, number 2, you've got to set realistic goals so that you can build self-belief. Now, I am absolutely one for setting big, hairy goals. Like, I'm massive on that. But if you don't believe in yourself at this point in time, and you don't believe that you're worthy or deserving of good things, and then you go and make your first goal to climb to the top of Mount Everest in a day, you're probably not going to do that. Probably not going to do that. I wouldn't say never, but probably not going to do it. And so what you're far better to do is set goals which are achievable, but outside the realm of what you've done before, so that you can slowly move towards them. Now, as an example, let's pretend you had a goal to get back in the gym or a goal to start running. Kev didn't put a goal to do a half marathon when he was 25 kilos heavier. The first thing he wanted to do was just learn to run again. And so what we've got to do is just wind the goal in. If you've got a 20 kilo weight loss goal, set the goal to lose the first 2, because when you do that, it will give you the confidence. But if you don't lose 20 kilograms in the first 6 weeks, which is not a healthy weight loss, what's going to happen is it's going to put you further and further down. We create confidence slowly by following through, number one, and achieving small things which start to build into bigger things. This is one of the things that I told Kev this morning, is that what's going to happen is now that you've run a marathon, you're going to want to run a half marathon, you're going to want to run a marathon, and then you're going to want to triathlon, and then you're going to, because every time you start to build to a new level, there's a new level and there's a new devil. But at the start, the devil that you're trying to overcome is that you don't believe in yourself. So you have to make the first goals achievable. Does this make sense? Now, I want you to pretend that you asked the question, because there is a number of you there. So Claire and Amelia and Bern, you said, yep, I face the same challenges. I'm speaking to you. I'm telling you that ask yourself, what is my physical goal? And wind it back down so it's something you can work towards in the middle to distant future. Does that make sense? Okay, number 3. We need to practice some self-compassion, like big time. I'm always saying on a fitness journey, when you're trying to lose weight and you're trying to get healthier, I like to position it with this metaphor, okay? I want you to imagine you're at a bowling alley, and on one side, you've got the discipline bumper. On the other side, you've got the compassion bumper, right? So you're bowling, and if you get a little bit too far to the kind of way out, you hit the discipline, and then the discipline says, all right, you kind of get a bit back on the plan here, girl. And if you start to go over here where you're burning the candle from both ends, then you need to tell yourself, hey, I need to practice a bit of self-love and compassion here, right? It's a fine line to walk these things. If you are coming from a position of self-hatred in a transformation, like how long do you think that's going to last? If you're trying to motivate yourself at the start of the day by telling yourself you're a fat fuck, is that, like, how long is that going to be sustainable? I'm a useless failure for all the swear words in the world. That's not going to last. The only way that this is going to last is if it comes from a place of self-love. So what we need to do is recognize that setbacks are going to happen. They're part of the course. They don't define your self-worth. If you meant to go to the gym but you didn't, that only talks to the action. That doesn't mean you are useless. You are a failure. You failed, but you aren't a failure as a consequence of failing. Does that make sense? When you personalize the struggle, that's where the issue happens. Okay? So we've got to exercise some, and to all of you guys, by the way, I would say this too, is I got this kind of sense that a lot of you fellas might start to switch off and go, nah, man, no pain, no gain. That no pain, no gain thing is absolute horseshit. It's absolute garbage. No pain, no gain. I mean, please. What? It's either 100% or it's not worth it. You either go to the gym 7 times a week or you're a failure because you didn't go 7 times. Like, that's just ridiculous. No pain, no gain. It's actually the exact opposite. A 1 is better than a 0. Yes, you might want a 10, but a 1 is better than a 0, and that's the way you should approach it. Okay, number 4 flies off perfectly from the last one, which is we need to focus on progress and not perfection. Okay? The reality is, if I would love to have as a health coach or weight loss coach that's coached thousands of people, I would love you guys to follow me around all day, right? Follow me around all day so that you could see how many times I react when I don't want to react. How I occasionally use alcohol to, and by the way, I should caveat this with not drinking. I've had 4 beers total, low calorie this week, but I use alcohol often to relax, right? I'll sit on the lounge and have an ice cream. The difference is I deposit consistently. I don't self-sabotage when I feel like I failed. I just accept that that's part of the process. Like, we're not trying to be a fucking robot here. We're a human living a life, right? We're not sitting here trying to be perfect and ticking every single box. I had a conversation with a gent yesterday, one of our clients. He's just started with us. He said to me, I said, how many days a week do you want to train in the gym so we can build you the program or get you the right program? He said, I think I can probably fit it in every day. For reference, this guy's 30 kilos overweight. He's a single dad for 5 days of the week, and he hasn't trained in a gym since 1949. I got on the phone to him and I said, dude, the reason I'm calling you here is because you are not even going to worry about going to the gym at all for the first couple of weeks. Instead, what we're going to focus on is getting you following the meal plan that we give you and get the first 3 to 4 kilos off. And I want you to see if you can hit 5,000 steps a day. Like, step back. When you enter your marriage, did you think that you were going to be the perfect husband or wife? No, of course you didn't. So why do we think when we enter a fitness transformation or a weight loss transformation, we need to be perfect? We do not. Nick says, for me, it's about building a healthy lifestyle, and that is a great comment, Nick. Okay, number 5. This is big. We need to create a support system. We need to surround ourselves with people who encourage and motivate you. And if you don't have a group, well, for starters, bloody join ours. It's the best in the world. But that said, you need to find people who support you in your goals, because the reality is the world, the nature of human beings, it's innate to us that we are competitive. And what ends up happening is people try to make themselves feel better by making you feel worse. You know, I see this repeatedly. Time and time again, when you start a transformation, you'll have these people just clapping at the start. Well done, Nick. Great work. And then all of a sudden, when they feel subconsciously, it's probably not a conscious thing, that you're starting to improve at a rate where you risk leaving them, where you're going ahead too far, they start to become the people that are the doubters, the people that are negging your energy. Oh, you're looking a bit too skinny. You got those people? This is why it is incredibly important for you to be surrounded by people who pick you up. Now, I want to shout this out because two points I want to make here. Men of BBA. To those of you who are on TikTok, you got no idea what I'm talking about. Better Body Academy. Right, so men of BBA, I'm proud of you. I'm so fucking proud of you. I am proud of you because in the big wild world, it's really uncool to be healthy, and it's way cooler to tell everyone else how many drinks you can drink in a sitting. You guys have the courage to say, you know what, I'll still enjoy a beer, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to look after my health because I don't want to have a cirrhotic liver that looks like a fucking overgrown cane toad by the time I'm 50. Instead, you say, you know what? I value myself. If you're surrounded by more men that value themselves, do you think that's eventually going to rub off on you? Who love themselves, do you think that's going to rub off on you? Of course it is. To the gentleman that asked the question, our client, the issue that you're struggling with is you're separating yourself. You're not as involved because you don't feel worthy. But what you need to do is fake it till you make it. Start showing up. Start being surrounded by people like Matt Harvey and Nick Friend and Terry Holden. Guys that will support the shit out of you. And when you start to realize that those guys are not in the business of trying to take you down to make themselves feel better, that's when you win. Here's a message for our ladies inside Better Body Academy. Inside Better Body Academy, I've been told, I don't know this because I'm not a woman, but I've been told that in the wide world of women, women are very snide, often in close circles, gossiping about each other and taking each other down. I had no idea of this. I thought women, like women's power and movement, and women are really supportive of each other. I'm advised that that's not the case. until they come in Better Body Academy. And then all of a sudden they didn't know what to do when they started getting comments encouraging them, making them feel better, actually picking them up, going to the gym once, being 30 kilos overweight, and then 10 people, 20 people in our group congratulate you and you say, well done. That is the type of environment that you need to be in if you want to win. If you look around to your friends and family group and you just feel like you're going to really struggle. You need to change that. Let's keep going with this podcast. Number 6, when you're stuck, but you need to move forward anyway, you have to have some sort of stress management practice. Okay? What I mean by this is, it's likely that you have a level of anxiety and you have a level of wavering mood. I mean, we all do over the course of the day. But unless you are living the day and the morning on your terms, what's going to happen is that you're going to get yourself stressed, and that's going to trigger unhealthy eating behaviors. And so we need to work out ways to dial down that stress. Examples might be, if you like the meditation route, go the meditation route. If you like the exercise route, then go the exercise route. But you have to think of yourself like a boiling kettle, right? The kettle's boiling, the kettle's boiling, the kettle's boiling. I'm getting anxious. My mental health's not struggling, but I'm just going to try to keep push through. That's not sustainable. We need to step back and work out, how do we turn the temperature of the boiling water down slightly? Okay? There are practices that we can do which are going to help that. Practices which just tune down the nervous system a little bit. Ironically, for me, that's lifting weights, which seems weird because it's kind of like energetic and intense. But for me, that's the way that I dissipate my energy. Are any of you guys like that? There's probably a few of you in the gym right now. Okay, next up, we need to plan our meals and target our nutrition. The reality is, for most people who are stuck, overweight, it correlates with feeling isolated and emotional. What does that translate into behaviorally? That translates into emotional and stress-based eating, right? That's it. And that's not a criticism. That's just a reality. So what we need to do is plan out our days and weeks a little bit better. I don't mean that we need to kind of go into this crazy meal planning scenario, but if we know that stress is a trigger and every time I'm stressed, I eat the high calorie food to manage the stress to feel better, then obviously we're very aware of what the issue is here. We've got to make the inverted commas bad habits easier or harder to do, and instead try to make the easy habits easier to do. Does that make sense? Number 8, we need to find enjoyable physical activities. Now, for me, going to the gym is very, very enjoyable, but to other people, it may not be enjoyable. So whilst I still think you should have resistance training as part of your planning because it is the best form of training for the maximum bang for buck, what we do need to do is have things like hiking, going to the beach, walking on the beach, whatever it is for you, playing soccer with your kids, going down to the local oval, things that you enjoy that don't feel like work. One of the things that Maddie and Sue Harvey do really well, and it's so good because when I'm in the Central Coast, I run into them all the time. They like to spend time with each other and they just go and walk together. That's so easy and it doesn't feel like hard work because they like it. So my question is, what do you like? If you know what you like, that's good. Let's take something like fishing, right? One of my new clients, Ben, I messaged him on a Sunday and I said, hey mate, can you make sure you do your check-in? And he said, absolutely buddy, but I'm going to take my therapy first. And I said, what's that? And he sent me back a photo of him in the boat. And I said, dude, take as long as you need, cut your phone off. Again, going back to the whole perfection thing, would it be good to train 3, 4, 5 days a week in the gym? Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. Going to a question that I'm getting here from Dracula on YouTube, this is a really good point. What advice do you have for someone who is ADD to stay focused? Okay, so firstly, I'm not a medical doctor, but what I do think we need to do is have something that you are really passionate about that you enjoy, right? So for example, if you are someone that really likes gym, great. But if you hate the gym, then you're not going to continue to do it. So let's focus on something that you really, really enjoy that narrows you down and brings you presence. Does that make sense, dude? Okay, 2 to go. Number 9, we need to practice mindful eating. Here's, again, this flows off from the one above, needing to prepare meals. But if we just are just not aware, we lose our awareness and we're sitting on the couch and we're just like, oh my God, I've had such a shit day. I feel terrible. And then all of a sudden you put on weight. And the reason is because you're not being mindful about the way that you're actually eating. One of the great things that you can do, and my gosh, practice this with your kids while they're young. That is, turn the fucking TVs off. Turn the iPads off. Put the phones down in a bloody bowl over that side of the room and sit and talk to each other with some light music on if you want to. This brings presence. This brings presence to the mealtime and means that you're paying attention to your body's hunger cues instead of taking the focus off what you're doing and eating mindlessly. Does this make sense? This is a trait. Eating mindlessly is a trait of people that are emotional and stressed, and the food is the comfort. The final one, I'm going to summarize these quickly. The final one is you may need to seek some professional help, because if you look through this list that I've given you here, which is pretty bloody comprehensive, and you don't need to do everything. You just need to start with one and then build upon it. I'm going to post these into the Facebook group. You start with one, but if it just feels like so much resistance here, what we're doing is we're dealing with different band-aids. What we might instead need to do is go back to what is the trauma that's actually stopping me from moving forward? Here are the facts. I want to lose weight. I want to change my body. I want to have better mental health. But I just can't. I just don't know what it is. I can't say this factually, but my feeling is that you possibly do know what it is, but you're trying to put it in the past because it creates a lot of pain, right? If I think, and I'm not a psychologist, but I think if we go back to the initial analogy that we talked about, we've got a balloon that's sitting in the pool that we keep pushing down. The reason you can't move forward is because there's all that negative energy that's under the surface in the balloon. The only way you're going to start being able to move forward is if you let that trauma come to the surface slowly and pop and release into the air. And guess what? It might trigger you for a long period of time, but it's out. It's out. It's no longer being suppressed. It's like being a ticking time bomb. If it's just continuously being pushed down, you take your eyes off the balloon for a minute, it comes to the surface. So you're so fixated with trying to be on watch and push the balloon down into the pool again that you can't focus on doing anything because all your attention's being focused on pushing the trauma back down. Like 15 people still watching here on Facebook, Facebook and YouTube. Does that analogy make sense? Can you let me know if that, like we've got a big ass balloon and it represents the trauma that we're facing and we just keep trying to push it down under the surface so we don't have to deal with it. But all my focus is on pushing it down, which means that I've literally got no bandwidth left to deal with my environment. I'm just so fixated with trying to push the weight back down, the balloon back down again. And if that's occupying your every bit of awareness, it's no wonder you can't move forward. How the fuck are you going to go and meal prep when all your attention's trying to push the balloon back down? How are you going to go and study how to become better in the gym or be consistent with 3 days a week in the gym when all your energy is just on pushing the balloon back down? Big time. Tara says, I love your analogies. Yep. Yeah, so managing problems sends you backwards. Exactly right. So guys, I'm going to hit these in quick fashion. No particular order. Start by identifying your core values. This is the most important start point. 2, we've got to set some realistic goals. Dial them back a bit. We can get to the hairy goals later. 3, offer yourself some self-compassion, for God's sake, some self-love. Number 4, we've got to just focus on daily progress, not trying to be awesome at everything. Number 5, you need a support system. I simply mean you need good people around you, and if you don't have it, you need to find it. Join BBA, for God's sake, send me an inbox. You need a stress management practice. Number 7, plan out your meals just a little bit so you've got a little bit more control pulled back. Practice some mindful eating. Turn the TVs off, get rid of the iPads and the phones, and just for 20 minutes, just sit with yourself or your family and calibrate. Number 8, find enjoyable physical activities. And the last one that we had was, if all of these just feel too overwhelming to do, it might be time for you to reach out and ask for some physical help so that you can try to deal with the underlying thing that's taking all of your attention and focus, which is likely the trauma. Guys, hopefully this has been helpful. I'm going to stick around if anyone wants to chat this out. This has been the Better Body Academy podcast, the podcast that you come to when you're sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. And of course, I'll see you in the next episode. Okay, see you later, TikTok. Thanks for the attention. I hope you've had a beautiful morning, and we will chat soon. All right. Was that helpful? Burns, can you let me know if that's helpful, please? More than happy. I'm going to post these in our Facebook group. The reason I'm going to post them in the Facebook group is because you're not going to remember them all, right? You're not going to remember them all. So what I want you to do is kind of come back to this afterwards and say, okay, like, what can I pull out of this? Like, what's something I can pull out of this? I think the simplest start point is get a pad, right? Like this, it's just not very hard. And just like at the top of it, just ask yourself, like, what do I stand for? Like, you probably have a bit of an abstract idea, but what do you stand for? If you were to create your own, like, I can remember back on primary school and high school, we had these like emblems, like shields, that it had like the school motto, and I can't even remember what our school motto was, but I know that was like, if you were to put an emblem on your wall that said what you stood for, like, what would that be? Again, I stand for love, I stand for family, and I stand for health. The reason that health's on there is because I think that everything else falls over if you don't have your health. Pretty simple, right? Yeah. Drax says that was a kind of advice you can apply to any goal. Yeah, it's a really good point. I think the struggle, Drac, is that when people are so stuck and they've been so stuck for so long, so stuck becomes an identity. And what do you repeat to yourself when you're so stuck? I'm so stuck. I'm so stuck. I'm so stuck. And every repetition is like beats you down into the ground a little bit further. This is what is called a fixed mindset. Okay, a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is when you believe the wiring that you inherited off your parents is just what you got. There's nothing you can do to change it. I mean, that's a belief, but it's not fact. There's been many, many, many different studies. The proof of, what's it called? Neuroplasticity is clear. Neuroplasticity means the brain being able to rewire itself to new patterns. A habit, if you want to know what a habit is basically your brain's way of making something so that you don't have to think about it. So it just happens automatically. So when you put your hand on the hot pan accidentally, what do? You don't go, that's a little bit hot. I shouldn't do that, so I'm just going to take that off now. You burn your hand off. Instead, you it's a reflex reaction. The problem is that some habits are created to serve you, other habits are created to protect you and make you stay in your comfort zone. Because the brain's highest goal is to keep you safe. So if the brain's highest goal is to keep you safe, it wants to automate a process that always keeps you safe. Which, for example, means I'm not going to post on the Facebook group because people might judge me, as an example. I'm not going to check in because I don't want commentary around that. So we stay in cotton wool. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying these are learned behaviors. And this is why the calorie equation of weight loss is so fucking simple. But the application and pattern of weight loss, actually how to get the weight off, that's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different ball game. It's the reason why we have a community. If we didn't have a community, this program would be no good. Because the community allows you, if you let it, to be vulnerable and to start to embrace, hey, I can do this. Anyway, love your company here this morning, guys. I hope you've had a beautiful start to your week or a great end to your weekend. Over and out. Chat to you soon.